Next one. Can the government move my cheese? All right. One of the big ways that politicians used to create jobs, the way that FDR did it back in the 30s, put more people on the government payroll, build dams, build roads, spend and spend and spend. Nobody, or nobody with any power anyway, seems to be talking about doing that. But there are all sorts of things that politicians are doing to create jobs. Only they're jobs in the private sector. Chana Joffe-Walt explains how.
In this story, I'm going to be talking about Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. But I should tell you up front, I'm not going to be talking about any of the things you know or have heard about him, which I'm assuming are mostly this.
Governor Walker is proposing deep cuts in public employee pension and health care benefits and has called for eliminating collective bargaining rights for everything but pay.
We will not be denied our rights to collectively bargain.
It is Walker's proposed budget cuts that have the unions now up in arms.
Yeah, all that. I'm not going there. I will not be saying the words union or collective bargaining in this story, except for that time. And that's it. I want to talk about something else. So before Walker became famous nationwide for taking on Wisconsin's public unions, in Wisconsin, he was famous for this, his pledge to create jobs, something Walker has never been understated about. Here he is at a campaign event in February of last year.
Today, I want to make a first-of-its-kind campaign announcement that I think is going to be earth-shattering. Today, I announce in front of all of you here today and everybody else who's going to be listening on the news and reading in tomorrow's newspaper that if you elect me as your next governor, I pledge to you here today and to all the other citizens of the state of Wisconsin that by the end of my first term, we will create 250,000 new jobs in this state and 10,000 new businesses by the end of that first term.
Walker's pledge to create jobs wasn't earth-shattering in and of itself. But what was interesting about it was that he was so specific. If we're going to look at how a politician creates jobs, this guy named a number, and not just once.
No, in fact, he repeated it over and over and over again.
This is Craig Gilbert, a political reporter for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.
250,000 jobs. I will create 250,000 jobs in my first term as governor. The message was the number.
Last February, into the spring, Scott Walker had two opponents, Democrat Tom Barrett and Republican Mark Newman. For months, the two men ridiculed Walker's number, his specificity, called his 250,000 jobs number meaningless, arbitrary, an empty promise. Why 250,000, they'd say, because it's a round number? Why not 285,000, 300,000? This went on until around June, it quietly stopped. And the next thing that happened was that one by one, Walker's opponents named their own numbers. First, Barrett.
Our immediate goal is to regain the 180,000 jobs that we have lost during this economic downturn. That's what I propose today, a comprehensive vision to create Wisconsin jobs.
Then Newman.
But when you put the package together, we're talking about 300,000 jobs in the state of Wisconsin by 2020. That's the target.
They couldn't beat Walker at the numbers game. On November 2nd, Scott Walker, the first to name a number, won the election for governor. The 250,000 jobs man would have his opportunity to job create. So, is it working? Are jobs being created in Wisconsin? Sure. We're in recovery from the worst recession since the Great Depression. You may have heard that. So yeah, there are new jobs in Wisconsin. All you have to do to see job creation happening is look in the newspaper, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel Classifieds. Bed Bath & Beyond has a couple positions, as do several fast-paced dentist offices. There are opportunities for self-starters interested in selling Hondas. Titan LED invites sales representatives to join the lighting revolution with a splashy full pager.
It's endless in terms of the opportunities because everywhere you look up, there's a fixture.
This is John Rashino performing his job title, Titan LED Marketing Director. He told me they're hiring sales agents like crazy right now, and these are newly created jobs. The company is brand new on the LED lighting scene, a booming industry.
Oh, phenomenal. There isn't a day that it goes by that we don't have agents walking through the door and the phones are ringing and we got purchase orders coming in and shipments going out. So it's actively growing and growing very aggressively.
2 sections down in the want ads, Brookdale Senior Living is hiring 15 people. The ad explains Brookdale Senior Living is growing fast. And in person, the executive vice president and treasurer, Kristen Fergie, explains why.
There's just a huge disconnect between the supply and the demand in the later years.
Translation, there's about to be a lot of old people. There aren't enough places to put them, and that's what Brookdale offers, places for old people. But, and this is an important but, I asked the LED guy if he had heard of Governor Walker's job-creating plans. He had not, nor had the majority of people I called in the classifieds. Kristen at Brookdale had, but she said Walker was not the reason Brookdale is building new old age homes and creating jobs. That, again, is thanks to the supply-demand disconnect. Governor Scott Walker is not behind these jobs. He's not aging people or making them crave LED lighting. These jobs are created on their own. In fact, before Walker was elected, before he did anything in office, the Wisconsin Department of Revenue projected that the state would add about 190,000 jobs by 2015, Walker's deadline. So 190,000 jobs if Walker stepped into his fancy governor's office day one and proceeded to do exactly nothing all 4 years. If he played Farmville on Facebook his entire term, jobs would still be created. So another way to think about the 250,000 jobs man is that he's got 190,000 that are freebies, which means he's actually going for 60,000 to reach beyond what would happen anyway. Now, how's he going to do that? The Wisconsin Capitol was sieged by anti-Walker protesters for weeks in February, early March. When I arrive, it's almost April, and the Capitol looks kind of like the front lawn of a frat house Monday morning. There are a few soppy posters poking out of garbage cans. Small groups of protesters show up at random hours. The drum circle has been reduced to one guy with a pail. Governor Walker sits one floor above that scene. There's no whiteboard in his office with a jobs tally, no big red 250,000 target, just him in a suit with a slogan.
Wisconsin's open for business.
Scott Walker has a Clark Kent thing going on. He's sort of generically handsome. He blinks in sync with his speech. He's a fan of the word literally. And he begins our interview by telling me about the night he won the election and introducing me to his sign, a move I'm pretty sure he uses with all the reporters. It's green, picture a campaign poster, but this one just says,
Wisconsin's open for business. In fact, I put it up, a sign like that, literally the night I won election, November 2nd. From that point forward, it's about telling the state what you're going to do. And so it literally just said, Wisconsin's open for business. And we said, we have a plan to help the people of the state create 250,000 jobs by the end of our first term. So 250,000 jobs by 2015.
Walker and I talked in circles for a bit. I asked him, but how do you do that? Create jobs? He tells me the private sector creates jobs. The government just has to get out of the way. But of course, his pledge was that the government, led by him, would create jobs. I asked for clarification, and eventually we come to this. Walker believes government helps create jobs through incentives. He speaks mostly of taxes and exclusively about lowering them, something he started working on right away.
January 3rd, took the oath of office, literally called a special session, and then handed the next morning, the legislature gave them a stack of various pieces of legislation, putting things that were specifically targeted towards lowering the tax burden for employers based upon jobs created.
Under these new laws, employers who create jobs now get a tax deduction, $2,000 to $4,000, depending on the company size, per head. So $2,000 to $4,000 deduction for each new hire. Companies that relocate to Wisconsin get 2 years tax-free. And Walker expanded another tax credit program for companies to make capital investments that create jobs. Now, all this, I should say, is an incredibly typical approach. Hand out goodies to entice the private sector to hire. Republicans tend to do it through tax cuts, Democrats through spending, many do both, but they're all basically after the same thing. Less money for the government, more money for the private sector, get the jobs numbers to go up.